Making speeches. We all like to talk. Some of us gossip about friends or fashion. Some of us share stories about what has happened to us during our day or on a trip. Primarily, talking is a form of social bonding. It is like social glue. Usually, when people share through talking, they create stronger attachments to each other because they get to know each other better and feel more comfortable with each other. But this is not always the case. Sometimes words burst relationships apart because words can be used not in a kind way to praise or encourage, but in an unkind way to hurt or threaten. Words are not only used in conversations or arguments, however. Words are also used to make speeches. Giving a speech is a special kind of talking. Speeches are different from conversations because one person talks and all the other people listen. In a conversation, words go back and forth between speakers, just like a ping pong ball is hit from one player to the other. The people listening to the speech are the audience. This audience might be a few students in a classroom, a dozen secretaries in an office, or hundreds or thousands of people in a theater or stadium. Not only is a speech different from a conversation, but there are different sorts of speeches too. The two basic types are called informative and persuasive. When someone is giving an informative speech, they want to tell their listeners about something. They want to give their listeners information about a topic. The speaker will usually do research about their chosen topic to get accurate information, and they need to make references to the sources of information they have used to make their speech, so that listeners will know where the information comes from. When someone is giving a persuasive speech, they want to make their listeners think the way that they do about the topic of their speech. They will support their position with reasons and examples to illustrate the argument that they are trying to make. Sometimes speeches can be too radical. In that case, they are no longer informative or persuasive. They become a sort of propaganda. This is what happens when speakers do not use rational arguments. Of course, speakers can use emotions when they present their ideas, but they also need to present those ideas logically. In addition, when people write speeches, they usually follow a certain pattern or structure. This structure is what supports and holds the speech together. It is like the external supports or columns that we see on some buildings. The structure of both the informative speech and the persuasive speech is basically the same. Both have three parts: an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. Initially, in an introduction, a speech will try to catch the listener's attention. There are many ways to do this. An introduction can use a piece of poetry, a famous quote, or an example. Then, in the second part of the speech, the body, the speaker will develop the ideas about the topic they have presented. Like a written paragraph, the body may often have 3 points and use details or examples to support these points. Finally, the last part of the speech, the conclusion, will sum up the points and remind the listener of the main idea of the whole speech. If the speaker is simply presenting information, they will remind the listener of the subject of their speech. If the speaker is giving a persuasive speech, then they will remind the listeners of their point of view, so that it is that opinion that the listeners will remember when they leave the place where they heard the speech. The 3 parts of the speech resemble a sandwich. The introduction and conclusion are the bread, and the middle layer is the body. This body will contain the most information and will form the primary focus of the speech. In every language, in every culture, there have been great speakers who have used speeches to move people to do things or believe in ideas. In difficult times, speakers have encouraged people not to give up hope. In good times, speakers have shared joy with their listeners so that all could celebrate. Most school children in the USA and many in Japan know the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech, "I Have a Dream," because it is such a beautiful, powerful, and moving speech. And in the UK, students still learn the words of some of Sir Winston Churchill's World War II speeches, which gave the British people the courage to fight a country that was much bigger and more powerful than they were. It is not only the output of the speech in the form of ideas, words, and structure which make it great. It is also the passion that the speaker feels about the topic and the way they share that passion that makes their speeches memorable. Great speeches nourish the spirit.